Gwyneth was scared. She was very scared.
Mr. Soiu believed that God was directing him to be with Gwyneth Paltrow.
When the FBI agents approached the house, they found a wedding announcement announcing his marriage to Gwyneth Paltrow.
He believed she knew who he was, that she actually welcomed these sex toys, this pornography, that if only he could get to her, she would run off and marry him, and they could go off and open a chain of Kinko stores.
In their mind, they're completely obsessed, and they're fixated, and they don't see any out. They have to attain their goal.
He threats to take a scalpel to her because, hey, if the candy doesn't work, maybe the threats will.
Dante was at the council table, totally a creepy guy, staring at her when she walked down the aisle to take the stand, and his eyes were following her the entire time.
I don't think that anybody would give a second look to Dante Soiu. I mean, he's not someone who stands out in a crowd, unless he's showing up on your doorstep. He's back again.
May 2000, Gwyneth Paltrow is one of the most coveted celebrities in the world. She has already amassed an Oscar and a Golden Globe. She is a tabloid fixture for her high-profile relationships, which include Brad Pitt and Ben Affleck. A California girl with good breeding on the A-list. As Paltrow is conquering Hollywood, she is also being stalked by a deranged man from Ohio, Dante Soiu.
Dante Soiu showed up at the house. I drove over to the house, and I knew that he wasn't coming all the way to Los Angeles for nothing.
When they get to the point where they're directing travel, that becomes a real red flag.
I met with the Paltrows. We talked about it. I took the evidence that they had. I said, just go out to dinner, I'll sit here, and I'll wait till he comes back. I saw him pull up in the cab. He was carrying a bag. I got out of my car, came across the street. He put the bag down and was at the gate, looking into the property, had his hand on the handle, thinking he was going to go in. I went up from behind him. He had placed the bag down for a second. I approached him and put him under citizen's arrest for stalking. In the bag was a book and a Barbie doll, blonde hair, looked like Gwyneth. Small pocket knife on him and a cell phone.
Even though his intentions may not have been to place her in fear, that was certainly the end result.
Dante Soiu's menacing behavior against actress Gwyneth Paltrow has reached an apex in California. But how did this man, who grew up in a religious home 50 years earlier in Ohio, come to torment one of Hollywood's biggest names?
Dante Soiu was a man who had really suffered in life with a chronic mental disorder since he was probably in his early 20s.
By the late 60s, a young Dante appears to be struggling with his mental health, with reports of at least 2 hospitalizations. Despite his challenges, by the mid-70s, Dante makes a living as a tax preparer while working towards an MBA in accounting at the University of Cincinnati.
He was able to work. He was able to earn enough of a living to sustain himself. He completed his education, got a number of degrees.
In 1980, Dante attends the Rhema Bible Training College, a Christian missionary school with a mandate to preach the gospel around the world.
He was very functional in many aspects of his life.
He was very bright, very articulate, yet a failure both in terms of his employment status, his career path, as well as being able to form a stable, loving relationship with a woman. That did not happen for him, largely because of his psychiatric impairments.
Dante Soiu's mental state is deteriorating and leading him down a dangerous path. In a seemingly other world, a young Gwyneth Paltrow is living a dream life with her wealthy Tinseltown family.
Gwyneth Paltrow is essentially Hollywood royalty. Her dad is Bruce Paltrow, a director. Her mother is a Tony Award-winning actress named Blythe Danner. She is grown up in a life of privilege. Like any number of second-generation Hollywood kids, Gwyneth Paltrow started early. She got up on stage with her mother when she was just 11 years old.
While attending college, Paltrow earns her first Hollywood role, thanks to Godfather Steven Spielberg. They are driving to the movies when the famed director offers her the part of Wendy in the reimagining of Hook. Before the end of her freshman year, Gwyneth drops out of school to become an actress.
I would have loved to sort of finish university and study art history. I don't know, I would have liked to work in a museum. That would have been really nice, but I'll keep this job for now anyway.
She's on the cusp of a big role that will change her life in more ways than one.
Paltrow continued to work and got large roles in a number of period dramas and some films that weren't seen all that much until David Fincher cast her as Brad Pitt's wife in the movie Seven.
The fishbowl of Hollywood is nothing new for Gwyneth. However, her increasing fame means she is being constantly hounded by photographers and scrutinized by tabloids. This, combined with a rumored sexual harassment incident by a high-powered movie executive, has Gwyneth exposed and vulnerable.
But it also marked the beginning of her as a fixture in the tabloids. She started dating the movie star Brad Pitt, and all of a sudden she's on the cover of every supermarket magazine for the next couple of years.
I don't read any of that stuff, and I don't really watch TV. I try and just pretend that I'm two separate people.
In 1996, while Brad Pitt proclaims her to be the love of his life from the podium of the Golden Globes, the two Hollywood stars get engaged. However, the golden couple split ways in 1997.
Around this time, she's making a ton of movies, some successful, some not. Movies like Sliding Doors and Emma keep her in the public eye, but mostly the tabloids were not concentrating on the work she was doing on screen, but what was happening for her off screen. The movie that made all the difference in her career was Shakespeare in Love.
Shakespeare in Love, a fictional retelling of the writing process of Romeo and Juliet, sweeps the Academy Awards. The movie triumphs over favorite Saving Private Ryan, directed by Gwyneth's godfather, Steven Spielberg.
It won her the Best Actress award and placed her firmly on the list of leading actors of her time.
Gwyneth is now an international movie star on countless magazine covers around the world. She doesn't stay single for long, rebounding with another Hollywood hunk, Ben Affleck.
The men that she was dating were almost as important as the work she was doing.
Gwyneth appears practically perfect, but she is about to learn the hard truth about life as a high-profile actress. In a darkened movie theater, Dante Soiu sees Gwyneth Paltrow on the silver screen and is immediately fixated. His life from that point on is permanently altered, as is hers.
He would send her letters, he'd send her gifts, he'd send her sexual material, sexual paraphernalia, all in the hope of winning her love.
Gwyneth was very scared and disgusted at the same time.
It never ceases to amaze me, actually, how easy it is to become a victim of a stalker. You never know where it's coming from.
Over time, the longer it carries on, the more likely a chance encounter is going to happen.
In 1999, the man who will go on to terrorize Gwyneth Paltrow turns 50. Dante Soiu, a man who continues to struggle with low self-esteem and money problems, has been spending countless hours over a number of years writing bizarre letters. On the receiving end are a slew of public figures, including President George H.W. Bush, Ted Turner, and William Shatner, among others. Completely unaware of Dante Soiu's existence, Gwyneth Paltrow weeps uncontrollably in a state of euphoria as she collects her Academy Award in 1999.
Winning the Oscar for Shakespeare in Love was a huge step forward for Gwyneth Paltrow, but with it came a huge amount of criticism. Gwyneth is a celebrity that people kind of love to hate. Her career and life are aspirational, and with that comes resentment from a lot of people.
After one of the biggest films of the year, Gwyneth is also one of the biggest names in Hollywood. She's everywhere and everyone knows who she is. Love her or hate her, nobody is immune to the risks of a potential stalker.
He just looked like someone that you would see walking down the street, which is why I think Gwyneth said what she did about having someone, a stranger, just approaching her on the street and being terrified. Because he was every man.
But Dante Soiu was far from typical. His mental stability appears questionable. He spends 8 hours a day at the library posing as an online relationship expert under the pseudonym Dr. Love. He combs the net looking for broken hearts to mend. He believes he has special spiritual healing powers and the ability to heal people from all walks of life.
Life is not going well. Despite his brightness, he has a psychiatric disorder. Diagnosis was delusional disorder, erotomanic subtype, otherwise what we call erotomania. And so in a sense, we know with people with severe mental disorders, they tend to socially drift to lower socioeconomic levels. So you tend to see unstable work histories, and you see a drift down the social ladder, which is what we saw with him.
He couldn't hold a job down, that he was working as a pizza delivery man, and he got fired because when he delivered a pizza to a house one time, he kissed the woman who answered the door.
While Dante flounders, he finds a new purpose in life after a trip to the movies.
His obsession with Miss Paltrow started with the movie Shakespeare in Love.
He felt he was destined to see her in that movie, and then he was also destined to see her in the hours afterward on the cover of those magazines. And this began to cement his delusional relationship with her.
He would turn on the radio and hear music or the theme song from the movie Shakespeare in Love, and he took that to be a sign from God. That's what generated the first initial packages and letters that was sent to Miss Paltrow's home and to the home of her parents.
This misguided perception of love and affection is all too common with stalkers.
The erotomanic suspect, which is the classic, I guess, Hollywood perception of what a stalker is. They believe that someone rich or famous is in love with them and they're actually involved in a relationship with that individual. And that's a very, very difficult case to manage.
He believed that she loved him, and he knew that he loved her.
In the spring of 1999, a letter arrives at the home of Gwyneth's parents. Portions of the letter state, quote, "First, do not marry Ben Affleck. He's a slob. I am more than a fan. I have formed a soul union with you." End of quote. This bizarre correspondence is only the beginning of the avalanches of letters and packages yet to come.
We had set Gwyneth up to where she wasn't really traceable, so the only conduit he had was through the parents.
The first ways that he communicated with her were via gifts and packages and letters were love letters. He called her his wife. He called her his lover. He would send her pictures of couples embracing with the caption Gwyneth and Dante on the appropriate people.
Letters and packages begin to pile up daily. A book arrives titled 10 Stupid Things Men Do to Mess Up Their Lives, with Ben Affleck's name scribbled next to each chapter. One note states, quote, "I am glad we're nymphomaniacs for each other. I have to eat up and wash our messes." End of quote.
The content of the letters over time became more and more delusional, sexual in nature.
The letters also become more aggressive. Soiu includes threatening biblical phrases such as, quote, "Take God's scalpel and cut the sin out of her." End of quote. In a later letter, he tells her, quote, "You were hopelessly lost. Now you must die. Yourself must die so that Christ can have preeminence." End of quote.
She called me, and I started taking a look at it, and my staff, and we started doing an investigation and a threat assessment built around that. And dealing with Soiu, you can tell that this is a person who was going to play the long game.
Soiu is resourceful, educated, and highly intelligent. A sharp contrast to how stalkers and the mentally ill are traditionally perceived.
When we look at the IQ of stalkers, we find a very, very interesting phenomenon. They tend to be either average IQ or better. This is behavior that typically is not impulsive, and it takes preparation, it takes work, it takes intensity of effort, and it takes time. So unlike most crimes, which can be done in seconds, if not minutes, stalking typically unfolds over the course of weeks, months, or years.
When it started to get to scripture and to him talking to a higher power, that's when it really becomes alarming. Because, you know, what that's saying, in a sense, is that I'm not in control of what I'm doing.
Citing the direction of God isn't uncommon in celebrity stalking cases. Madonna, Steven Spielberg, and others have had to protect themselves against men who claim to be receiving messages from God.
This is Mr. Soyu's reality. You cannot convince Mr. Soiu that God has not destined him and Gwyneth Paltrow to be together.
The security team around Gwyneth is getting nervous. It seems inevitable that Dante Soiu is going to try to come into physical contact with the object of his desire. Now they have to figure out how they can possibly stop him. He is more than a devoted fan.
They're completely obsessed, and they're fixated, and they don't see any out. They have to attain their goal.
I don't think this obsession will ever stop. The way I sum it up is stalkers never go away, stalkers are never cured.
$19.99. For all intents and purposes, Gwyneth Paltrow has it all: beauty, wealth, talent, a hunky boyfriend, and an Oscar. But because of Dante Soiu, she is also living in fear. As the 21st century begins, Gwyneth Paltrow and Ben Affleck are everywhere. Her high-profile relationship means she is tabloid fodder. Gwyneth is also dealing with box office hits and unexpected misses.
The Talented Mr. Ripley, I think, is very definitely a high point in her career, and there have been some very high points. There's also been lower points where the films haven't connected with audiences, movies like Bounce and that sort of thing. While she was making those films, though, even the ones that didn't connect, she was still on the cover of tabloids.
Dante is reading all the tabloids, and those stories stoke his obsession. For him, Gwyneth is not an unapproachable world-famous actress. She is the woman he is destined to be with.
Life is never all that we want it to be, and fantasy typically can be perfect. It allows you to retreat into fantasy, into a fantasy of a blissful union with a beautiful woman, and that's going to feel better. It's going to usher in very pleasant, positive feelings, much, much better than what you're doing during the day or at night, and in his case, he was delivering pizza at night. This was a man who had a master's degree, very bright, and he's delivering pizza at night.
Dante continues to inundate the Paltrow residence with letters and packages, every one more explicit than the last.
He sent marital aids. He sent books regarding sexual liaisons.
He would hope that she would reply to these messages, and that somehow this would help to protect her from the other individuals that were making her life difficult, such as Mr. Pitt and Mr. Affleck.
Having received no response, Dante takes things in a new, terrifying direction.
So he scrapes the money together for a ticket from Columbus, Ohio to Los Angeles.
So now we have, in addition to him acting on his impulses to send letters and gifts to Miss Paltrow, he's now directing travel. He's leaving his comfort zone in Ohio for the sole purposes of attempting to make contact with the object of his obsession. So from a threat assessment standpoint, that's crossing over a threshold. It's one thing to be delusional and have delusional thoughts. It's another thing to act upon those thoughts.
Dante is becoming increasingly unpredictable, irrational, and now he's taken things one step too far. He shows up at the Paltrow home, expecting to meet the woman he believes will be his wife.
Blythe Danner sees him there and recognizes that this is the person who has been pursuing her daughter. He has a satchel of some sort. He's kind of digging through the satchel. She's very frightened by this, thinks that this may be a weapon. He was told to leave.
Before he departs, Blythe Danner gives Dante the pile of unopened letters and packages, telling him to leave Gwyneth alone and that he is frightening them. He is devastated.
He comes back the next day and leaves a letter on the gate asking for forgiveness and making an overture to reconnect with the family. That's crossing a threshold. That's a red flag for threat assessment professionals.
When somebody else is involved, like a family member, they'll never feel like you are the one stopping this relationship from happening. They start saying, I know your parents are keeping us apart. I need to convince your dad, things like that.
Prosecutors visit the Paltrow home to see if they are able to pursue legal action. Gwyneth is scared, but decides not to have Dante arrested.
Stalking victims in general sometimes don't want criminal charges brought right away. There's a couple of reasons. One, they're afraid that the situation could escalate, that if this person is arrested and then let go, that person will be back to kill them or harm them. It might be what pushes them over the edge. A lot of times victims feel guilt. That was it something that I did, or maybe I could have done things different? Did I bring this on myself?
After the incident with Blythe Danner, the letters stop, at least for now.
At the time, though, Miss Paltrow was not inclined to prosecute. She wanted an intervention done, and she was relying on that intervention to take care of the problem. Unfortunately, it did not.
All went well for about a month and a half. And then he began continuing to send her things.
Books, sex toys, magazines, scripture stuff. He was sending pizzas too.
He also sent her books on tantric sex, but then he also sent her books on religion. So he couldn't make up his mind which way he was going to go. And he just felt all of this was completely normal.
There was a lot of the pornography that he sent. There were pictures of naked women, and there were blonde women, and he would write her name on the body of the woman. These girls resembled her quite a bit. So he was seeking, obviously, her, but anybody who had her likeness was a representation of her. I think we had like about 20 banker boxes full of evidence. You have to look at all of it, which is, you know, a rough go for my staff to have to go through all that disgusting stuff.
It challenges law enforcement to come up with another means by which we can manage that behavior. So many times it's a building block process to put together a successful criminal investigation.
At that point, the parents were concerned, obviously. So what we did was we contacted the FBI, got them involved. She was in Los Angeles, he's in Ohio, and you cross state lines. It's interstate stalking, which carries a little heavier of a sentence.
She wanted him talked to, perhaps an intervention of some sort done, telling him to knock this stuff off.
June 29, 1999. FBI agents head to Ohio. From the moment investigators arrive at Dante Soiu's residence, they begin to understand the depth of his delusional obsession.
They found a wedding announcement on the door of his apartment announcing his marriage to Gwyneth Paltrow. But this idealization is also a risk too, because the other side of idealization is devaluation and hostility if the public figure rejects the person.
The wedding announcement is not the only thing that alarms agents.
Photographs pasted to the walls, magazines laying open on various pieces of furniture, numerous videotapes and movies that she had starred in. There was no question that he was obsessed.
Having these shrines and being surrounded by this stimuli is a way, again, to retreat into fantasy. Life is never all that we want it to be, and fantasy typically can be perfect.
In what will prove to be a critical question, the FBI asks Dante if he knows why they are in his home. He responds with, quote, "to stop sending letters," end of quote.
He knew that what he was doing was pursuing Gwyneth Paltrow, and that there was intent in his pursuit. And secondly, to bring to his awareness that this was frightening her.
And at that time, he said what he needed to say.
He said he understood what he was doing and he wasn't going to do it anymore. And my heart sinks because I know that that's not the end of it. If you have a direct line to God and he talks to you and you talk to him, you think the FBI is going to stop you? That's ridiculous.
Sometime later, Mr. Soiu set up a website dedicated to Gwyneth Paltrow so that he could communicate with her by posting messages on this website as opposed to sending the packages and letters that he had been warned about sending. In fact, he posted in excess of 1,200 messages to Ms. Paltrow on this particular website.
The following month, the FBI paid Dante another visit and tell him to back off.
So we will serve oftentimes these restraining orders with the expectation that Mr. Soiu or someone like Mr. Soiu will act upon his impulse and again send a package. Now we have some leverage. We have some criminal leverage to get this thing in front of a judge, in front of a prosecutor, maybe implement some terms of probation to further restrict that type of behavior. It's not an instantaneous arrest and prosecution. Sometimes you've got to lay the foundation in order to get to that point.
I'm not 100% sure what his intentions ultimately would be, other than to be with her, to have her as his own. In a lot of these cases, I want something, so then I'm going to force you to make this happen.
For Dante Soiu, there is no question that Gwyneth is his sole focus. In October 1999, he proposes with a ring and a CD of wedding music. For Gwyneth, Dante represents her escalating nightmare.
Her fear was he was going to assault her, break in, rape her.
He's going to come to LA. He's not going to leave until he gets what he wants.
In early 2000, Dante Soiu was slipping further down the rabbit hole of insanity. His love for Gwyneth Paltrow, the it girl of Hollywood, seemingly has no bounds.
Somebody's delusional and obsessed, they tell you, because what they want is you. And they think they have a relationship, and it's a two-way relationship according to them. And so they want to tell you, this is who I am. And there's people that have been doing this over a long course of time because they can keep thinking about this person, and they open up their eyes in the morning, they see this person, and that feeds into their obsession.
Meanwhile, Gwyneth's star power in Hollywood continues to rise. She begins work on Shallow Hal and follows it up with auteur-driven films such as The Royal Tenenbaums. On screen, she is luminous and in control, but in real life, she is a mess.
Gwyneth was scared. She was very scared and disgusted at the same time. Having dealt with this for an entire year and a half, all the things that he sent, I knew it was inevitable he's coming.
At one point in time, Mr. Soiu, who was living in Ohio, happened to drive past a billboard. And for some unknown reason, there was something about this billboard that struck a chord with him and reminded him of Miss Paltrow.
Dante writes a letter to Gwyneth telling her he is coming back to California for her.
That letter took a couple days, obviously, to get to Los Angeles. In the meantime, he had gotten on a plane and got there. Blythe Danner called me. I saw him walk by the house, and I told him he had to get out of here.
He returned subsequent to that and left a note on the gate of the family residence with his phone number and an overture that he would like to make contact with the family and bury the hatchet, as it were. So now we have this note with Dante's phone number. So Miss Paltrow's mother called Dennis Bridwell and provided him with the information. Bridwell called the number, and Soiu answered the phone. Bridwell asked Soiu, "Where are you?" Soiu simply said, "Los Angeles."
So I drove over to the house, and I knew that he wasn't coming all the way to Los Angeles for nothing.
Bridwell is staking out the Paltrow residence with no doubt that Dante will return.
I saw him pull up in the cab. He was carrying a bag. I got out of my car, came across the street. He was at the gate, looking into the property, had his hand on the handle, thinking he was going to go in. I went up from behind him, put him under citizen's arrest for stalking. The Santa Monica police, and they were there in a minute. And anytime you do it, have an arrest or deal with somebody like this, you have to, take precautions so you don't get hurt. I thought he was trying to achieve his destiny. He didn't put up a fight. He knew what he was doing.
So Dante was arrested for stalking Gwyneth Paltrow. The case was subsequently filed by Rhonda Saunders.
This particular case, he had this fixed delusion that they were meant to be together, that it was going to happen, that if the candy and flowers that he was also sending didn't work, that he could send her these letters to terrify her, to scare her into doing what he wanted her to do, which was to marry him.
Hoping to deflect media scrutiny, the case is filed and prosecuted at a remote courthouse near LAX. Soiu pleads not guilty.
Dante Soiu saw himself as an intellectual, that he was smarter than everyone. So even though he had a lawyer, he was taking pages and pages of notes about the testimony and shoving it over to his lawyer. A couple of times I saw his lawyer just shove it right back at him. I put Dennis Bridwell on the stand, and we literally had cartloads of things that Dante had sent to Gwyneth.
I had to sit there with Rhonda Saunders and 2 other DAs and a deputy and just went through all this stuff for hours.
When Gwyneth was on the stand, I did have to show her some of the items, asked how it affected her. Did receiving these items make her afraid? Because what was interesting is we actually changed the stalking law, that the fear had to be not death or great bodily injury, but fear of serious injury, because here in California, we had a Supreme Court case that said that sex or a fear of rape or sexual assault is not great bodily injury. So we changed the wording to fear of serious injury, which covers a lot of different things. She used to love to go out and greet her fans, and she would talk to them and shake their hands. But ever since Dante, she was afraid. She didn't want to meet her fans because she didn't know, is one of them like Dante? And this is the damage that Dante Soiu did to Gwyneth Paltrow. It's not just somebody being a pest. This is a serious criminal who is destroying people's lives.
In court, Gwyneth relives the contents of Dante's letters. God told him personally that we were supposed to be together, and my parents were keeping him from me. God would smite my parents, or that they would die, because they were keeping us apart. If I resisted our union, then I was a sinner, and that bad things would happen to me.
She was trembling, I remember that. She expressed her fear. She expressed her guilt for bringing this person into her parents' life. She didn't know what she had ever done to bring this on. We told her that you don't have to look at him. But I did notice that he was just looking at her so intensely. And he was so happy to be in that room with her, finally. So here she was being compromised by getting these sex objects, and her fear was he was going to assault her, break in, rape her.
An emotional Gwyneth tells the court that her dread of Dante Soiu sparked nightmares and infected every sphere of her existence. Following her tearful testimony, Dante decides not to plead guilty and asks to dismiss the jury in favor of a bench trial. The verdict is swift.
So Dante was found guilty of stalking, but then we had to segue into a second hearing because he had also entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. And he was warned when he entered that plea that by entering a plea of insanity, he could be kept indefinitely in a lockdown psychiatric facility.
Because he had pled insanity, then that allows evaluators, and there were 4 of us that saw him over the course of time, to evaluate his mental state at the time of the offense and determine whether he met criteria for insanity in California.
Dante is found to be legally insane.
That criteria is essentially twofold. One is, does a person know the difference between right and wrong? And secondly, can they appreciate the nature and consequences of what they did?
With his background, though, his doctor love, that he felt he could actually give love advice to other people, even though he himself had never had any kind of a relationship, that he could tell people what God's will was. And all of these things just made for someone who I felt was a serious danger.
So he would have been out in probably a year and a half, if not only a year. But we figured his mental health needed to be addressed. So we thought if he went in and was evaluated, essentially he goes in for 3 years, and then he gets reevaluated every year to see if he's not a danger to himself or others.
He's put in the mental hospital where he stayed for 7 years. He didn't receive a lot of treatment, but he did have a right to have a trial to prove if he was a danger to the community or not.
He apparently kept failing that review. What we know, though, is that problems that existed while he was inside had to do with a nurse who looked like Gwyneth, that he was harassing and obsessing about, and she got upset. So I think that was another thing that he ended up staying in there for as long as he did. We knew when he first was convicted and was put in a mental institution that he would keep doing it, obviously, probably after he got out. Everybody hopes that once these type of people get on meds, that they'll correct their ways. And sometimes they do, they just don't stay on their meds.
With Soiu locked up, Gwyneth gets married and has 2 children with musician Chris Martin. Her career takes a backseat as she focuses on raising a family.
I got a call from Gwyneth's mom. This was a couple of years after Dante went to the psychiatric facility. And she was worried that eventually he would get out. And he had confronted her in that front yard. And she wanted to know if I could just write a letter to the city council in Santa Monica, because she wanted to build a higher wall so that when he got out, she knew he was going to come back and try to confront her again. And she was really scared.
And there is reason to be scared, because Dante Soiu is far from over with his obsession.
It's very, very frustrating to see someone like Dante, who it's pretty clear is never going to stop. I think we're going to see more of Dante.
It's 2008. Gwyneth Paltrow begins to re-emerge on the silver screen in Iron Man, one of the most profitable film franchises ever. As Gwyneth is experiencing another taste of success, she is also looking over her shoulder. The man who tormented the actress and her family, Dante Soiu, is now free.
I returned to the treatment center where he was being held, which was a locked center here in Los Angeles, and then continued my evaluation. It was clear to me that this was still a mentally ill man, but he also was convinced that he would be able to not refocus on Gwyneth Paltrow, and that he had a plan with his brother, which I confirmed, that he would move back to Ohio and live there under the supervision of his brother. It went to trial. It's actually a conditional release hearing, and the determination there is whether he can live safely in the community and that he would not pose a danger or risk to her.
And when I heard that, I knew, you know what, he's not going to stop. Because he knows he basically can get away with it. And sure enough, he started again.
Gwyneth's relief is short-lived. Upon his return to Ohio, Dante Soiu is arrested for stalking a 31-year-old local woman. At the same time, he has set his sights on his original victim, Gwyneth Paltrow, resuming his campaign of unwanted letters and gifts.
He appeased the FBI on the initial interview, but found a different way to contact Ms. Paltrow. After he was discharged from the hospital and placed on probation, he began contacting Ms. Paltrow's attorney as an alternative means of contacting her.
Soiu sends more than 65 letters and packages, wants to marry Paltrow, and writes to her demanding a definitive answer.
Within a year of returning to Ohio, Dante Soiu began to send things to Gwyneth Paltrow, and the fixation kicked in once again, and he had to act upon it. He could not act upon this. That resulted in another about 5 years of intermittent contact with her, increasing distress. And once again, he was charged with stalking by the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office and brought back to stand trial on new stalking charges.
He said, I just wanted her to say she didn't want me around. Well, duh. I mean, that first trial, how many times did he have to be told? Told by her mother, told by her trying to ignore him, to her testifying against him, having the FBI show up on his door. And yet he still goes back to, well, I wanted her to say she didn't want to marry me. I mean, so that's totally disingenuous.
In September of 2016, Dante Soiu is back on trial. Unlike last time, the case is making international headlines. Many in the general public view Paltrow in a very unsympathetic manner, which could prove lucky for Dante Soiu.
For some reason, there seemed to be this perception that if her life is so perfect, how can she allow this to happen? And all of a sudden, she is a victim who is now the cause of her own problem. And that is not right. I mean, it's clearly it's not the right way to look at this.
The second trial begins, and this time it's a media circus. Though cameras are not allowed in the court, every step is being chronicled in the press.
Drawing celebrity trials or celebrity hearings are totally different from drawing regular stalkings, murders, kidnappings, in that the whole world knows what these celebrities look like. So what I try and find is the essence of the person. I thought Dante was scary. Totally creepy fellow, sitting at the council table, surrounded by papers. He's writing with a little nub of a pencil the whole time, staring at her. He had big, thick glasses on. Of course, it was a packed courtroom the day that Gwyneth Paltrow took the witness stand. And she came in, she's very tall, very slim, turtleneck, sweater, the symphony of beige. And I was looking for, sparkling lipstick, her eyes made up, hair looking great, and there was not anything like that. She was a regular kind of a person. So it was a very different kind of a Gwyneth Paltrow. And when she walked down the aisle to take the stand, his eyes were following her the entire time. And she was looking at her attorney the entire time. She refused to look at him.
She did, get a little emotional on the stand. And she said when she received the letters, she was so scared that she immediately emailed her head of security.
Very, very shaken by the whole thing, to be so close to somebody who had been following her every move for so long.
This is one of the longest stalking cases, particularly of a public figure, that I've seen.
I testified just about things that happened in the first trial for the second trial, because he didn't stop. He kept writing her letters, but he toned it down. I wasn't working with her anymore. I just testified as somebody who handled the restraining order for him initially and the arrest, reviewed all the material from the first case.
There were boxes of evidence behind her where she was sitting on the witness stand, and the attorney was opening up the boxes and showing these little dangly little earrings and old, like a cookbook. Just very bizarre and random and scary kind of things. He was totally obsessed with her. He made it seem that he was fine, that he was in an institution of some sort, that he paid his dues, that he's perfect, he's great, he's gonna leave her alone. He wrote an apology letter, and that life was gonna go on and everything was gonna be fine. So, I don't know, but I wouldn't want him out if I were her.
The jury reaches a verdict. Dante Soiu is found not guilty.
So when I read in the paper that he'd been acquitted in his second trial for stalking, I was shocked. Because with his background, with his history, and the fact that he's back again, and that he was not going to stop, that he was still obsessed, to be really honest, I could not understand it. I can't even explain it to you.
I was shocked in the sense that a jury would find against her. But then again, I wasn't totally shocked because I don't know how sympathetic a character she was.
After his acquittal in September 2016, Dante Soiu returns to Ohio and appears to be living a quiet existence. But given his history, experts doubt he will be able to keep his obsessions at bay.
Dante's obsession spanned over 17 years, going back to the first trial, going into the second trial where he came back years later. I don't think this obsession will ever stop. The way I sum it up is, stalkers never go away, stalkers are never cured.
He may not be in custody right now, and he may not be acting out, but that fixation still exists, that obsession still exists, and how it will manifest itself in the future is anybody's guess, but I would venture to guess we haven't heard the last of Dante Soiu.